Rockfield Films, Aussie, AB, camera, marker.
Oh, fuck off.
That was very sweet. Well done, you, this.
Yeah, I can't remember a fucking thing, to be fair.
Recording.
1, 2, 3, 4.
A pop group on their way to a recording session, heading not for the stifling pressures of a London or New York studio, but to the peace of the Welsh hills near Monmouth. Kingsley and Charles Ward are farmers who've gone into the pop business, converting the outbuildings of their farm into one of Europe's best equipped recording centres.
Before we start, are you going to ask, like, how did I personally get into the music business? What influenced me? Or are you going to start when Charles and I got the band together? There's two different starting points. There's me when I went to school, got into rock and roll, and 3 years later I left school, I'm 17, and that's when Charles and I started to go around together and get a band going. So you can start either way, see?
So where does it start?
Well, it started a story. We brought up playing Chopin on this piano, on this very piano. We come from a family of farmers, you see, so we're used to cows and things. We bought this farm in 1958, my parents bought it, and it was a stud farm for Shire horses, and we converted it into sort of massive piggeries and things. And we had a milking herd as well, so we were basically farmers. But there's no money in farming, there never was, we never made money out of it. And my parents obviously thought we'd end up taking it over. But in reality, we weren't having any of that. I just could not believe when I heard Elvis Presley, Heartbreak Hotel and all that stuff coming out. I was in Abergavenny Grammar School at the time, and we were sort of into music, and that's what changed me, really.
When Rock Round the Clock came to Monmouth, 1, 2, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, rock, that's how everything in my life changed. In 1956, I bought myself an acoustic guitar. I learned a few chords, 3-finger chords, and this sort of thing, and gradually came into playing the guitar that way. Rock and roll, man. Cool. Hey?
Charles and I are obviously brothers, you know, and we started a group. We borrowed this little tape machine, and Charles strummed his little songs out, which were good little songs. And that was our first little venture into recording something in my mum's front room. We were already very ambitious because we didn't know what to do now. So we were looking at the record label. It said EMI Records, Hayes, Middlesex. So off we trooped with our little tape machine. When we arrived there, it was the wrong place altogether. It was EMI's pressing factory. But the gentleman who manned the barrier going to the factory,
He said, I'm here to get rid of people like you.
he said to us, you should have gone to Manchester Square, where the main music company is. And he very kindly rang up the doorman over there for us and said, we're coming over. So we go to Manchester Square, out we get with our tape machine, and there's the doorman, and there's the secretary. And eventually we went in and saw George Martin.
We said, we've got to hear it on this tape recorder. We had our hands and knees under this table, and I don't know what sort of plug we had in there, but we couldn't get the bloody plug in the thing there.
I think he was fascinated with us because it's the first time ever somebody had walked into his office carrying a tape machine. It's like booking the greatest restaurant in the world and taking their own sandwiches.
But he didn't sign you.
Well, no, he didn't. And I left my cup of coffee there too. I never touched it. But that's where it clicked to us, that if we got some equipment with all the space we had, we could do something with it all.
Upstairs is the attics, where we built our first recording studio. Oh, God. It's a right mess up here. In those days, you must remember that there were no commercial studios outside the major ones, which is RCA, EMI, Decca, Philips. They had their studios, but there's nowhere to record anywhere. So the best thing you can do is do it yourself. Oh, my God. Now, typical farmers, when we first built the studio, we knew nothing about acoustic material, so we actually got a load of what was feed bags for pigs, look, BOCM label. And we used those stuffed in the wall to get a separation from the control room to the drum room. We bought a little mixer, we bought a little ferrograph tape machine, we had some microphones, and that's where we learned how to record properly with our own group, the Charles Kingsley Combo, and many of the local little Welsh bands.
As I look, I can see Liz.
And these little bands we record, and we used to charge them £5 or £10 to make an acetate. In the other building, we had 500 pigs, can you believe it? Oh, up in the attics, it's miles away from the farm, so you couldn't hear anything of the animals, so that was fine, like. I introduced to Anne a picture of loveliness, if ever I've seen it. I first met her when she was 17, 3 months older than me, and I couldn't believe my good luck, because I'd never had a girlfriend in my life before. And Anne turned up, and I was so happy. Her father wasn't, but I was.
It's just that you came from the one side of town and I was from the other side of town.
She's from the posh side of town, and I was from the other side of the tracks. That's what you're trying to say.
Well, you're the farmer, weren't you?
Anne was a bank clerk, right, which is very handy to us, because she did accounts. And she could type and do all that.
The main farmhouse where my parents now live, that was my grandparents' house. And in the farmhouse, there's a flat. So we lived in the flat. Our sitting room doubled up as the office, but also it doubled up as the place where the bands would come and have tea and coffee.
Lisa and Amanda, they knew how to operate the telephones.
The band member would phone us in the office. Whoever was there, myself, my sister or whatever, would answer the phone. They'd be quite often quite shocked. You know, so, well, can you do it? Yes, tell us the number, we know what to do.
How old were you doing this?
I was probably only 5 or 6. All of my childhood memories are sort of linked up with being here and bands, and some of them lived with us. Spring were a band from Leicester originally.
They were living in Nan's front bedroom, but living with us and eating with us. So I'd have these 5 lads and Lisa and Amanda, and the only quiet time I had was at 1:45 when Trumpton came on. The boys would be sat there and the girls on the floor all watching Trumpton.
Here is the clock, the Trumpton clock, telling the time steadily, sensibly.
They stayed with us for quite a few years. I can't remember how long now.
And that is when Rockfield became the world's first residential recording studios.
Aston was working class, terrace houses, and it was just hand to mouth, you know. I went to school with Tony Elmy, although we weren't mates at school. I knew of him, and he'd bring his guitar to school. My mum got me a job, factories and different jobs. I wouldn't last more than a week or two, and I got, Mum, I got a job. Oh, great. Oh, Mum, I quit my job. What? Again? I could never hold one down. I go, is this it for my life? I was like a racehorse waiting to run, but I had nowhere to run, you know. I said to my dad, Dad, can you sign for a pay bond? A pay bond was a money lending, £250. I got me a microphone stand, and a 50-watt Vox PA.
Had he not signed for me, I would not be sitting here right now.
Quite a long story, so, but we all managed to get together and form a band, which was horrible.
What do you mean?
At the time. Because we got this band together and we'd never played together with it. I didn't even know Ozzy could sing, to be honest.
One for the mind, two for the show. Get ready and go I know to. Step on my blue suede shoes. Do anything but don't step on my shoes. We used to rehearse in a community centre in Birmingham. We could only get in at 9 in the morning. We had people going, keep the noise down, I can hear you, wake the dead.
Cool. Oh, blimey. Oh, my God. Right. We're now in the Coach House studio, built 1968-69 by Charles and myself. It was stables before. It's changed very little. Charles and I bought an 8-track machine, which means our new studio was equal to any studio in the world.
That sound, already way up in the charts, started its upward journey here in a derelict barn in Rockfield, Monmouthshire, Wales, 140 miles away from the gloss of London showbiz. The barn that used to house half a dozen horses and their hay is now crammed with £50,000 worth of electronic hardware. It's the sort of armoury you need these days in the battle to reach the top.
And from that moment, we never went that way. We went that way.
We had a phone call, and it was Black Sabbath, which we'd never heard of, because in those days we didn't, you know. And they were one of the first bands to use our new studio.
Just to go from Birmingham to Monmouth was an adventure. We'd never, you don't understand, we'd never been in a studio. We'd never been on a farm. We'd never been, so everything was new. You know, going to see a cow in a field, you know. We were from the streets of Aston. The only thing you ever saw was our police horse. It was brilliant.
I remember Ozzy outside. He had a bow and arrow, I remember yesterday, with a target. And I remember the band, a good band, by the way. But they were all starting off, weren't we, like you know? But they were an introduction to what was a really heavy rock sound, in which what Rockfield's famous for, you know.
Loud. We were very loud for that time.
This has still got basically the same sort of thing that they've always had.
Which is what?
Well, basic.
That's when it allowed us the freedom to, because nobody was playing as loud as that. The roof tiles rattling.
I came up the drive and rat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat. To tell the truth, I thought the roof was going to come off.
We didn't realise what we were doing. We didn't go, I don't know, let's invent heavy metal. It just happened.
But when Black Sabbath, with all the amplifiers turned up, of course they were deafening, really. And it was different to what we were used to, because back in the 60s, it wasn't that sort of heavy rock sound anyway.
Kingsley got one of our lads.
He was a nuisance. He'd come in and start talking away. You go, Kingsley, we're rehearsing. Yeah, okay. We're rehearsing then. Yeah, all right, I'll be quiet and sit there.
What did you personally make of heavy metal?
Well, I was brought up, you know, with pop music, really. Hi, my Jersey cows? See, he's even talking to me over there. He wants feeding.
What used to happen was they had the studio working here, and Charles and Kingsley both had a milking herd.
Hello, girls. I'm boys. I've come to say hello, and I've come to feed you.
So they'd go up to milk the cows in the morning, then the band would turn up for a recording, and we'd have to get a message up there and say, come on, quick, the band's here. So they'd come down the one side of the house, go in and change, and come out looking like respected businessmen.
Smell of a cow, though, didn't we? Yeah, I just thought I'd look after you. You like that, eh? Hello, Amber. I think a lot of pop groups are used to staying in flats and things like that in London, and very claustrophobic, I should think. Whereas down here, it's very spectacular, you know.
We all lived together. We come and fed us. We could make as much noise as we want. Mess around on the river that we used to build rafts, and I'd be shooting my shotguns around.
Do you remember waking everyone up?
Oh yeah, well, I was repeating it. What the fuck?
Then Ozzy get up in the morning, light the fire. So we'd have a big fire roaring away, which, you know, he was known for setting chimneys on fire.
People can't build fireplaces like that now. It'd be like a smelting factory. The heat was horrendous.
Rockfield Studios, it was an interesting place to be. I mean, you know, it was a bit run down, really, because a lot of the buildings were just full up with hay and bales of hay and straw, and of course used as stables as well. The essence of space rock music, it's having all these wonderful sort of weird electronics with relentless rhythm that used to pump away, dum, 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 you know.
When Hawkwind originally turned up, of course they were this rebellious sort of band, very famous they were, like, you know, and I thought, oh, God, what are they going to be like, you know, bad boys or something? I wasn't too sure, really. And I was in the studio, awaiting their arrival. And Lemmy was the first in, and he said, hello, I'm Lemmy. I said, who are you? I'm Kingsley. Hello, Kingsley, I'm Lemmy. Of course, Lemmy was heavily into sort of, I'll show you the word, like pills and things. It was in those days, it was all pills and whatever, like, you know. And he said to me, where can I hide my stash? I thought, oh, blimey. But anyway, he put him in the corner. About 20 minutes later, Dave Rock turns up, and he said, hello, who are you? I said, I'm Kingsley. I'm Dave. I said, hello, Dave. He says, anybody here? I said, Lemmy. He said, oh, is he? Where did he hide his stash? I said, blimey, I thought, here we go.
Hawkwind, yeah, Dave Brock, yeah, they loved it. We only had, when they came here for accommodation, we only had the bungalow up at the end of the drive, and there was one single room on there, and we showed about 6 beds in there, and a lot of them slept in one big room, and there was one toilet between a lot of them. But after 1967, the Summer of Love, it was what they wanted.
Everyone knows of Lemmy. What was he like at Rockfield?
Did the same as what we all did there. We used to smoke marijuana and smoke a bit of hash and play music. Sometimes record under the influence of organic mescaline, and we used to take LSD down there sometimes and record tracks on LSD and so on. You know, we were renowned for doing that. I'll just show you the E chord, which is the famous E chord, which, if this guitar's in tune, it's so it's in E. So anything, if we go, you know, like it's barring things. So. Barring it. The essence. So if you play like Opalocca, it would be. I mean, if you listen to a opera locker, basically it's just a rhythmic sort of drum beat and us just going clonking around the guitars behind it with weird sounds going on in one key, I might add. We were good at playing in one key. You could play half an hour in the key of E and not be boring. I mean, sometimes you think, God's sake, I was in the Quadrangle once and we'd done some recording, I think. I thought it was two different bands playing at the same time. I thought, I wondered what was going on.
So how much time did you spend in all?
Years. Not playing music, but just doing other things.
We were all drinking, doing some drug or other. We started up in a rock band, dabbling in drugs. Then we ended up being a drug band, dabbling in rock. I mean, drugs fuck everything up, you know.
We never had trouble with the local police. It was only, the fact was, there was famous people here, and in those days, you know, it was a damn sex and drugs and rock and roll. And I think the local sort of drug squads used to view Rockfield as being a place where they should direct some of their attention to. So we just noticed that there would be cars parked at the bottom of the drive, and we realised there was people just watching this place, you know, taking numbers and things. We always knew that tree was there was a parking place for anybody to park. You can see what goes on at the studios, can't you?
Drugs and this sort of thing. Unfortunately, my brother went in there one night to clear it and that sort of thing, and the police who'd busted Monmouth Grammar School knew all about us, all right. And out they came and they caught him red-handed. It was the stuff and he's going to get disposed of. And they put him in prison. They took him in for the night in Monmouth and that, in his jailhouse rock.
We personally never got involved in it, but we can't have what the clients do, can you? Like, you know, we were just onlookers, really. Very exciting, very interesting, but that's what it was.
If you hear a lot of stories about the past and you think a lot of stories about some of the bands that have been here, the one thing that has probably been central to most of it is my dad. He's been in the middle of it all. He's just a big kid, you know.
I can't say, you know, he's not getting into trouble. Give him a long enough rope and he'll strangle himself. Say no more.
Good old Charles, you've got to walk on part now. We're not ready yet. This is where we built the Quadrangle studio in 1973. Well, there's all echo chambers down there. We have 3 natural echo chambers, which are fantastic. Hello. You can hear the echo. It goes on for about 3.5 seconds.
What used to be in here?
This used to be the pig sheds. We had nearly 500 pigs down here at one time.
How long has this been going on? How long?
Ace, How Long Has This Been Going On was recorded there. And that went to #1.
We have guitar booths for the separation. We have a drum room there. And Charles built moving walls in there in mid-70s. You know, he built some walls which actually move, which is a good idea. And so we always progress, you know, bit by bit. Well, in 1975, when Queen were here, no, bloody, I can't do
Say hello, right? She's talking first.
Amanda.
Get that camera off me!
In 1975, when Queen were here, I very well remember Brian May and Roger Law. It was Frisbee was the sort of in-game throwing Frisbees. I remember mentioning to Brian, I said, "You're not doing very much." And he said, "Well, Freddie is in there playing the piano, doing something." So I walked into there, which is now an office. In those days, it was a food stores for horses with saddles and all. And Freddie was sat in the far corner, and I stood next to him. And I didn't realise he was probably doing the finishing touches to Bohemian Rhapsody, which was called Freddie's thing, by the way.
Amazing.
Yeah. And that's when the farming side took a step back, and then the music business took over. This is a live room, big drum room here. This originally was built as a games room that Brian put his amplifiers in here, Rush put all the equipment in here because they loved the sound of the room, you see, because we have curtains which you can open and you can change the sound of the room. And a lot of other studios spent millions on this and they've all gone. We spent sod all and we've survived a lot of them.
From the age of 19 till the age of 32, I was on board a mysterious vessel. And it finally ran out of steam, air, reality and everything in 1980. When we lost John, Led Zeppelin was no more, so there was no doing anything else but moving on, you know. There was thousands and thousands of rock singers with no shirts on. So I was already a cliche. I didn't know what on earth I was going to do, but I knew if I was going to find out what it was going to be, it would be in a place like this. It's just space. There you are. It's pastoral, but it's pretty, it's full of history.
Once we got rid of the pigs, then we moved on to the music business. So it's more or less the same, you know, except that the uses has changed.
Yeah.
But if you look at it...
musicians instead of pigs.
Yeah.
It's got drama and success and failure, but it's all in this great sort of arboreal, this green, pleasant land, you know, rather than going into a city and grinding it out.
We were in the first year of our recording career. We had made one album. We recorded some of that album in Abbey Road. Now, when you think about it, to be 19 and it be in Abbey Road, you know, who wouldn't love that? I just shrunk, you know, I thought, Abbey Road, what are we doing in Abbey Road? I mean, we'd hardly been out of Glasgow, we'd hardly been a recording studio. So to be in Abbey Road, it was just a step way too far for me, and everyone who worked in there was called Hayden, and you know, it was very proper and very English and very middle class, and it just wasn't rock and roll. So I couldn't wait to get out of there. All we wanted to do was play, and the producer, John Leckie, had looked for residential places, and he said, there's this place called Rockfield. You'll love this place. And we said, where is it? And he said, Wales.
I do remember, actually, I think when we drove in there, I think we passed by Kingsley, and he looked mental, and I remember thinking, all right, we're in the country.
My first impression with Rockfield was, crikey, this is a bit rough, I suppose, because there seems to be more attention going on with the farm and the animals and the general kind of manure kind of stuff. But the equipment was great and you had a lot of space, you know, you had an instant feeling of, hey, we can do anything here because of the size of the rooms and stuff.
Well, in the early 80s, Simple Minds turned up. So did Adam and the Ants, you see. And they were trendsetters.
Music was changing because it had come through the punk thing and we were into what was called the new wave. And of course, new wave could be anything. It still had to have the energy and creativity, but you didn't have the boundaries that you had before. So when we did Real Cacophony at Rockfield, we could drum up any fantasy in our minds and create a song out of it, which is the kind of attitude the band had, you know.
So we were in the coach house, And, you know, that was a big deal, but we were always curious to know who was in the main studio. And there was a microphone set up in the middle of the courtyard. And we thought, well, what are they doing? Anyway, we could not believe that none other than Iggy Pop was booked. I mean, we just couldn't believe it.
Can you hear me out there now? The deal is, this is our rehearsal, and this is my band, and these are the afternoon barflies. A one, a two, a 1, 2, 3, 4.
But actually, probably it was that Iggy was on the wagon or off the wagon. I always get them. He was on the wagon, in as much that I think he was down there trying to be a good boy and not to be drinking and not to be doing anything naughty and just be seriously getting on with the work. So they sent him down there. There he was in the big studio, and within a couple of nights he was creeping round into our little studio because we weren't on the wagon. Not only was that mind-blowing, but Bowie turned up and he looked as you would imagine David Bowie looking.
And I always remember because David Bowie was all in red. He had red trousers and red shirt on and everything. And
but he had this huge, it was so Rockfield, he had this huge bit of cheese in his hand and a can of Heineken.
we went over there and Simple Minds sang some backing vocals. We all went in the studio and clapped. And a good time was had by all.
The lyric before we come in is, it goes, you're so simple-minded. Play it safe. What was the chorus, Charlie? What do we have in common? What do we have in common? Play it safe.
What do we have in common? Play it safe. I'll tell you something safe.
Lecky in his sweet way would always remind you, the record company are coming up next week. Oh, God. Oh God. I haven't written any lyrics yet. Been here a month.
The band hadn't really found their footing. It was still quite experimental.
We were already in a lot of debt because the first album had tanked.
They hadn't really had a hit. If you don't come up with hits, if you don't recoup your money, you'd get dropped. The record doesn't get released and everything stops and the payments stop and you're not going to make another record after that.
I remember walking up to the microphone with a song called Changeling, and I think probably the first time in my life feeling a kind of a sober pressure. John was like, track sounds great, how's it sound in the headphones? Sounds great, you ready to go? Yeah, and they hadn't heard a word. Pretty good. That's a cool riff.
It's nice.
I'd moved it along and I was, this is great, this is great, this is great, this is great. But what kind of lyric? And at the time, these new clubs were starting in London. These, they weren't called New Romantics, but they were on the verge of that. And they were showing pictures in the magazines and the paper about all these stylish changeling people. And I thought, I'm going to write about them, sitting here in the Welsh countryside.
Coach house, there's this corridor, and at the end of the room is a door to a toilet. And if you put a microphone in this corridor and open the door to the studio, it picked up this great resonance from the drum. So the microphone in the corridor, secret weapon of Rockfield. It was fantastic. Changeling is probably the best track on the record for me, yeah.
Changeling for you.
It came out, record company hated it. Didn't think there was anything radio-wise on it, and they were right. But the journalists liked it and started to say, you know, simple minds are worthwhile taking serious.
The residential idea was you didn't have to break the train of thought or creativity. You could stick around. Really quite a neat way of people being almost prisoners. I had no idea of writing techniques with anybody else, but I didn't have to consider, really, anybody else's opinions anymore. I was free to fail. I tried to embrace more or less everything I could from contemporary sound, bit by bit by bit. And I suppose this was the first time I used any kind of mechanized rhythms at all. The famous TR-808 hand claps and bass drum. Terrible, really. We wrote Big Log. The whole thing about the structure of the song and the way it's played, it's turned a corner. Well, the Big Log was another jazz cigarette, of course, an African Woodbine that was being shared mostly by the rhythm section, which was one drum box and the bass player. It's a road song, though, isn't it? Then I could do anything, anywhere.
There was this kind of feeling of a new kind of pop music, and we were gravitating towards that, but I think there was still going to have to, what's the song that's going to do it? I remember being in the rehearsal room, it was the old mill, and I remember the first time Charlie played the riff to Promised You a Miracle, and I thought, this'll do it.
Well, I must say I'm extremely pleased to introduce this next act. It's a band I've championed a lot on my radio show, and here they are making their Top of the Pops debut, Simple Minds.
Belief is a beauty thing. Woman says, as golden days break wonder reach, as love takes our train.
It makes you feel good, the riff makes you feel good. It's full of optimism. When I hear it, that's the emotion that I get from it.
It was like a funky pop song.
Well, it was top 10, wasn't it? That album, New Gold Dream, people still talk about it. It's a landmark album for us. And you know, commercial success and critical, it took us into all the big arenas. One of the key changes that happened to us then was that we'd changed record labels. And lo and behold, Virgin had their own residential studio called The Manor, a place for pop stars. And I think we thought, we're pop stars now, and then this is the new shiny world. The technology, everything was moving on. And I don't know the story of Rockfield then, but I think it would have been hard for them to keep up, you know, with Richard Branson's money.
Because Rockfield was a pioneer and everybody copied us, there was loads of studios out there now, all residential, and of course there's only a certain amount of work to go around. And then of course the dreaded dance music turned up, which wasn't quite what we did.
Well, Rockfield's always been known for rock music, for bands playing together, loud electric guitars and drums and stuff. And I guess as the 80s went on, there was a lot more electronics being used. There was the sampler, the Akai sampler got invented, and the little Cube-based computer, and so you could program things and trigger things and create new music, really. So you didn't need a drummer, a big room for a big drum sound, because you could use a sample of a drummer and loop that and play along to that. So it was, as the technology took over, you know, I guess people didn't book Rockfield quite so often.
Well, it did get tough. I mean, it's always been feast and famine. That is the reality. You know, in the 70s, it was back to back, and there was loads of work coming in, and, you know, it was fine. You know, my parents had nice cars, and you know, we were off at private school and all of that sort of stuff. And then, you know, things changed. There didn't seem to be as much work coming through. And then, you know, my mum was out, and she always did books for people. She always, you know, she did accountancy, well, bookkeeping for people. And at one point she had 7 different jobs doing bookkeeping. And that was to help keep the place going and keep money coming into the house.
What happened to your and Kingsley's doing Rockfield together?
In the end, I milked the cows up until 1975. Are you frightened to go back to where we were? And I was left a bit behind. That there is Rockfield Studios.
In 1987, we were a big company by now. We decided, Charles took one half of the company and built Morrow Valley. And I kept the remaining bit of Rockfield and carried on with Rockfield. So it was no problem. Not a case of falling out. It was a case of 2 different ideas, and he did what he wanted to do, and I did what I wanted to do, and there's no problem in it.
I'm from Monmouth, so I grew up just down the road from the studio. Rockfield's like this mysterious place that you kind of knew about, but you couldn't go out there, but you'd see the kind of bands around the town. And my dad used to have the local taxi firm, so he used to tell me about this place and about Kingsley, so I kind of knew little bits. But yeah, you just kind of didn't really know too much about it, but it was just this great place that everyone was kind of proud of in Monmouth, you know. And as soon as you get old enough to go into the pubs, like, people would say, oh, so-and-so was in last week. And you kind of get sucked into waiting to see who's going to come into the Nag's Head, you know. I mean, I was into music, playing in bands, and I was recording my rehearsals. I always had the 4 tracks out. I was always more interested in recording the rehearsals than actual rehearsing. I never thought about working here. I knew it was here, but I was planning on going away to university and studying something else. And then the opportunity came up through a friend of mine. Pretty strange job interview, as you can imagine, with Kingsley. He had a moan about the music business. And then said, he actually told me to go to college and then university and think about doing something else, he said. But if you still want to do it when you get home, give me a call and there's a job for you. So it took me the time, 10 minutes in the car with my dad to get home, and I decided I wanted to come and do it. You know, didn't know where it was going to lead.
1989, 1990 was a massive recession, and the music business suddenly caved in completely. But life changed for us because one door closes and one door opens. I had a phone call from a guy called John Leckie, a good friend of mine. He had a band to produce called Stone Roses.
And I think they booked in officially for a couple of weeks, but they stayed. And they left, I think it was 13 months in the end, that they were here. And that saved us. You know, the Stone Roses saved Rockfield. That's, I can easily say that.
Are you fed up that it's taken so long for people outside of Manchester and the North West to catch up with you?
Signed a deal where they had to make the record at the record company's studio. The band had to come down to London and stay in a cheap hotel. We worked mostly night times, and I kept telling them about Rockfield and saying this was a great place and where we need to go. And through the record company and personnel at the record company changing, we got to go to Rockfield. We did Waterfall, a song called Waterfall, which we'd attempted in London and not really got the best take. And most of all, we did I Am the Resurrection. We worked it out so that the band could play it live. So the whole of Resurrection is one complete take, really, from start to finish.
You always say that you expect to be the best band in the world, so...
No, we know that we are. We don't expect anyone else to think anything in particular about us. They can think and do what they want.
Well, if you're the best band in the world, why aren't you number one?
Because the record isn't out yet.
When the album came out, they became really, really special people. You know, everyone loved them. Well, you have to do better the next time, or you have to do as good as, you know, all sorts of things can happen. The single after that was called One Love. We booked into Rockfield to do that. We planned to be there at 9 o'clock on Sunday evening for dinner and start Monday morning, fresh, you know. So I got there with an assistant, and the roadies came down with a van load of equipment, and we set that up. The band never showed up. Monday came and went, and I'm making phone calls. Oh, we'll just wait there, you know, stay there. So it got right round until the Tuesday evening, and we were just planning on going home, and should we pack up and that's it? No one seems to be coming. And the door opened, and Manny fell in the room, and Rennie and just flopped on the settee. And then I realised they were all covered in paint. They'd recorded a single called Sally Cinnamon, and their old record company had released it as their next single without their permission. They called into, you know, B&Q, the paint shop, and went to his office and just threw paint everywhere, and jumped in the van and drove to Rockfield and sat there waiting to see what the repercussions were. And I said, look, we're all set up, let's get out there and record. And they actually sat there and recorded with the paint still in their hair. The police turned up at 8 o'clock the next morning and arrested them and got them all out of bed.
Gary Mountfield, John Squire, Alan Wren and Ian Brown arrived at Wolverhampton Crown Court to a noisy greeting from about 30 fans.
The second album with the Stone Roses was done for an American record company. Geffen were quite prepared to throw lots of money, millions of pounds, at the band to do whatever they wanted.
They told me, did I want to do the next session? And it was the Stone Roses. As you can imagine, 16, very exciting. Yeah, what an opportunity. A lot of pressure on them, but they just seemed relaxed to me. From day one, it was great fun. Absolutely great fun.
We had Stone Roses here, and 2 of the cows had calved. Oh gosh, we must go out and see the calves. So we had to take them across the meadow to see the calves.
Manny, he embraced life around here. He was out fishing, he became great friends with a lot of the local lads.
Manny became such a part of Monmouth, shall we say. He met his girlfriend here, they have a son together, and that, you know, they met in Monmouth when he was in Monmouth.
They stayed there for 14 months. That album was called Second Coming. It was a long time coming.
There was one occasion that the executives from the label from America were coming over, and they flew over on Concorde. It was a big, big deal. And they all came down in their limos, and they arrived here, and the band had gone.
Yeah, they went home. They'd flown in, and they went home. And they'd taken the tapes with them as well, I think, so we couldn't play them anything.
The first time we went over there was when we went to fucking have a little snoop on the Stone Roses, wasn't it? And like, you drove the combine harvester over there in the middle of the night. Just we were going, what the fuck are they up to? Because they hadn't been doing anything for years, and we sort of got off this. And I'm on about a proper combine harvester,
big one,
ones that you got to get ladders up to, and it's like miles. It's higher than that fucking roof. And he fucking starts it in one go. And off we fucking go.
Irish blood.
Crawling down the road with the big fucking lights on. It looked like fucking... looked bonkers. And then we fucking... I think we drove it into the thing, turned the lights off, and fucking rolled over like some out of the professionals and fucking doom over the edge, and then we fucking popped up and we could hear some fucking bass line and drums going on. And then we kind of hid, and then I don't think we got caught, didn't we? And they brought us in, didn't we?
I don't think we brought the combine out.
We didn't bring the combine out, yeah, we left it there.
Entrance.
Yeah, and then I think we got fucking caught by someone, and we went in, didn't we?
Yeah.
And had a little chat with Ian Brown and a few people, and they were playing some songs and stuff, and I think you might have had a spliff and that, and then I think we fucking fucked off. And then I think they did it the next night. I think they come over
Manny turned up
on a tractor while we were in bed, and I think, so they say, he robbed all Gwiggs' weed or our weed and that. So we'd had one album, everything was going well, I think. And I think maybe the money started, maybe it might have started trickling. I mean, maybe it wasn't.
No, it was. Yeah, money had started coming in. Yeah. Sales had gone round. I mean, definitely, maybe it was up there, wasn't it?
So it was the second album, Morning Glory. I mean, I think we were completely still off our heads. It felt mega. It was like, you know, it was like that's what you sort of read about. You go, fucking hell, this is what it's fucking all about. This rock and roll, man. You know, you lived there, and you didn't leave the studio until you had your album finished. It's like the Big Brother house, isn't it? Just put with tunes.
Yeah.
Our first album went to #1. It was like, I guess, the height of the Manchester kind of boom thing. Our manager at the time thought it was a good idea to send us away to kind of write and record an album and to spend 6 weeks in one space. But you know, it was a great idea, but it was also pretty nuts as well.
No distractions. Well, apart from going into the town, you know, which was rocking. You know, there was 2 pubs there.
3 actually.
It was the 3, yeah.
We were in the middle of the Welsh countryside with just other people who were kind of quite like-minded people.
You could get up to whatever you wanted. So you did.
Could have gone to all these studios that had swimming pools and huge games rooms and restaurants and stuff, but we'd rather just come and play with the cows and stuff.
For, you know, young people in their mid-20s, it was ideal because we were just into getting drunk and taking drugs and making music. There was no one there telling you what you couldn't do. As long as the work was getting done, you know, the record company would come down and check every now and again. I remember Columbia turned up from America, and the only person in the studio was me, and I was lying down with my head in the Leslie speaker, tripping on acid, and it was just going round and round. I've been there for hours. But at the same time, we were getting our dinners cooked for us. We had our mothers there, had been in the kitchen, and the ladies who would come in and clean up for us. We'd come in the morning, and all our drugs would be lined out really neatly on the side for us. It was perfect. Just perfect, yeah.
The 90s was an amazing time. You know, we were booked 9 months in advance, both studios, back to back. We would have a session leaving on a Monday morning, and they'd be loading out the one door, and the next session would be loading in the other door. And it was constant. But it was an amazing time for guitar-based bands in British music. You know, it absolutely was.
Why men with guitar bands?
I don't know. I don't really know why that would be. I suppose at the time, I mean, obviously there were big female singers and stuff, weren't there? And there were big female rock artists and stuff, but we tended to get the men that I can remember, that I can think of.
Fucking
With Oasis, it was quick. It was fast, because obviously coming off the back of Stone Roses album that took 14 months, and then other albums that I'd done, they were fast. We was kind of working on a song a day.
Noel would get in and he'd put a guide acoustic down always. White'd nail the drums, and it'd be like, right, bass, him with the bass, Griggs, me, him with the guitar, he'd do his overdubs, he'd come in and sing. It was really quick and all of it. I remember that really quick session, song after song, you know, it's just...
That's because there was like loads of pubs in town that we heard that were good, you know what I mean? It was like, get in there and fucking smash it out and then fucking pub. For some, we just loved being in the pub.
What was Monmouth like?
Full of pubs.
I'd do bits of engineering, keep the tape machines running, set up all the microphones, you know, record the band. A lot of driving to the pub. All hours.
You'd wait until you get your stuff done and that, but as soon as you get your stuff done, if that was done at 1 in the afternoon, then you'd be in the pub by 1:10, you know what I mean?
And did you ever carry on doing stuff when you got back from the pub at night?
You'd have a go. You'd have a go, but it'd be fucking... You'd sound like the Pogues.
Yeah, I mean, I would just go to the pub and then till we came back, and then I would drive everyone back, you know. Obviously, somebody had to remain sober because we were on tape back in them days. There's a little bit of debate on who was going to sing Wonderwall. Noel was going to sing Wonderwall, then Liam was going to sing Wonderwall, then Noel said, OK, I'll sing Don't Look Back in Anger, and then Liam wanted to sing Don't Look Back in Anger, so there was the debate on who was going to sing what.
Everyone wanted to make the songs the best they could, you know, I know what to do it to, and if that breeded a bit of fucking competition, then so be it, you know what I mean? But it was, I didn't want to go in there and be better than Bonehead or better than Griggs, but I just wanted to go and be better than me, you know what I mean? I just wanted to go and do my thing, and if I just wanted to, when I heard them putting the songs on, I go, right, this fucking tune needs a banging vocal, so hopefully I can deliver it, you know what I mean?
What did you think of Wonderwall?
I didn't like it at first. I thought it was a bit funky, and I thought...
I thought it sounded like a reggae song to me. It sounded like a reggae song.
Yeah, I thought, what's going on?
That's weird.
Today is gonna be the day that they're gonna throw it back to you. By now you should have somehow realized what you gotta do. I don't believe that anybody feels the way I do about you now.
How long did it take you to record the vocal for Wonderwall?
Not long, because the fucking apparently was happy hour.
Friday night, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think it was like... It was early doors, man, so I just whipped that down in about 30 seconds, man.
I don't believe that anybody feels the way I do about you now. And all the roads we have to walk are winding.
I remember doing Wonderwall. I had to set him up on the wall outside the Coach House studio. So I just set the mics up there, and he's doing the guide guitars for Wonderwall were done on top of the wall.
So I've been into town.
Oh, yeah.
Probably had a couple of lagers, but I bought a remote-control car, right? Proper, you know, big fat wheels on it. And next thing, I'm looking out the lounge, and I see Noel sat up on a wall with loads of microphones around him, outside with an acoustic guitar. And I was like, what the fuck, what's he doing, student? And he's trying to catch the atmosphere, you know, the birds singing and all that stuff. So I was like, I'm getting him. So I got this car, and I'm like, I'm having this. So I was like, right, got it in first gear, like, so his car's like, you can see Noel's head, like, in his headphones, like, what the fuck's that noise? Sort of bird's that, you know what I mean?
Fucking man.
Yeah. You're gonna be the one that saves me.
We'll definitely have a few little nights when we're all very pleased with our work and that, and we'd go, should we listen to it back 5 million times and fucking double loud, pat each other on the back and that? We definitely did a lot of that.
This one night, we were sleeping in the front of the house, and they were working in the Coach House studio. And we'd gone to bed, normally, I suppose, I don't know, 11, 12 o'clock, something like that. And we couldn't get to sleep because we could hear the music so loud. Kingsley kept saying, oh, I hope the villagers can't hear it. We stuck it out to 4 o'clock. And Kingsley said, it's no good. We're going to have to tell them to stop it. So I came down the stairs, came out through the back. And as I got to the studios, the outside door was open and the inner door was wide open. And so I was standing there like this. And I could see them going, it's Anne, it's Anne. And of course he switched all the lights on then. Oh, Anne, sorry, is there a problem? Well, yes, there is actually. I said, Kingsley and I haven't been able to get to sleep because I said of the music. And I said, I don't know what the villagers are like, But I said, could I ask you to close the outside doors, or at least both doors, while you carry on? Oh, right, OK, right, thanks, Anne, thank you.
And he apologised to Anne the next day.
Should I turn this off or write down? As soon as I started playing it, as soon as I played those 3 chords, I knew it was going to be something different. I really like minor chords. I really like soul music because it's like uplifting but sad at the same time.
Ready, Paulo?
I wanted to get a brass section in, and I'd sent them a demo and a couple of notes, and they turned up. I think it was Tom Jones's brass section. And it was so cheerful that they were playing. I was aghast. Can you not just like, flatten a few notes there? And they did, but it's still just too chirpy for me. Summer's gone. Day spent with the grass and the sun. I was trying to get drug references. But as soon as those first 3 chords, we just went for it. Wake up, it's a beautiful morning. Feel the sun shining for your eyes. I think everybody were pinning their hopes on that one track. It just got played everywhere. I mean, it still gets played everywhere. I don't know who plays it. Someone's playing it all the time.
Rockfield now was rocketing. And in 1997, out of the top 10 albums, Rockfield had 7 in the top 10. And I can't remember who they were, but we know that 7 of the top were done at Rockfield.
OK. We grew up in South Wales, Rockfield. It's a legendary place. It was the first ever residential recording studio in the world, apparently. Kingsley says.
Kingsley. It was definitely James who drove us there, to go there in '97. And we came up with If You Tolerate This. We thought it was a B-side. We went to Rockfield, and the magic dust turned it into our, the biggest #1.
It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's only 6 chords in the song. It's a really simple song. And of course you got the the future teaches you to be alone. The present to be afraid and cold. So if I can't shoot rabbits, then I can't shoot fascists. It was the last time we'd ever really committed anything just to tape without the aid of Pro Tools or the digital morass of stuff that you have around you to kind of help make records now. And it was quite effortless. But that was the thing about Rockfield. If something was sounding good, you just didn't mess with it. And if you tolerate this, then your children will be next. And if you tolerate this, then your children will be next. Will be next. Will be next. Will be next. Rob Collins, keyboard player, he didn't really speak very much, but he really drove the band.
Turned up on a Monday, and Rob was playing this riff. Turned up on Tuesday, he was still playing this riff. And by the end of the week, he was still playing it. You thought about putting any other chords in there, Rob? Got to the following week, and a couple of chords to throw in on your riff. A sister and a brother, and a change in the way that you feel. Nice to meet you, hope we never see you. I'll be at ease, watching you sleep, watching you smile. The whole thing just kind of grew, and we just played around with the sounds in the studio and did a load of overdubs. Always looking for you. We just knew that we had this magic modern northern soul stomper.
It's like, you know, it's just a very enthusiastic time, and all of us sort of like dancing on the mixing desk, and, you know, crazy times. We were all taking a lot of drugs at the time. I can't speak on behalf of everybody in the band, but I was. Yeah.
Who were the most hedonistic of the band?
Me and Rob. Rob Collins, our keyboard player. We experimented with different ways of getting deeper into our music. Well, that was the idea, anyway. And experimenting with each other as well. You know, as people, we were like human experiments. You know, Rob would go clubbing quite a lot in Bristol and then come back in, you know, early hours and then sort of like do little bits. We'd have a song and we'd wake up the next day and it was just like, and it'd become like, you know, an acid house track. and then it'd be like, what the fuck is this? You know, and then bring it back to something else.
What had happened that night?
Just like ecstasy. But then that's pulling and manipulating and working things out and stretching things, which I think is an amazing thing. So it's a struggle, but I don't know, it's pretty good. But listening to Telling Stories now, you know, it's just the most vibrant sounding thing. We did all of it in Rockfield, that album. Although, to be honest, we would swap and sort of like go to Mono Valley and then come back to Rockfield to do vocals and things like that. So, you know, Telling Stories was the last one that we did there. But, you know, as you know, it kind of all, you know, it kind of ended there as well.
The first time was so easy. It was really easy. We were getting on really well. Whereas the last album, King Size, we weren't getting on very well. It's weird because Rockfield enhances your experience. So if you're having a great time, it's just the best place in the world. And if you're not, then you're just getting on in each other's nerves. Because you are in that, pushed together in that place, there's nowhere else to go, really. The magic goes out of the walls.
Being in a residential studio, it's 24/7. At the end of the day, it's a very intense relationship within bands. And you're talking about creative people, aren't you? You know, and with that creativity comes high emotion, shall we say? And it all gets magnified in a place like this.
And the trouble with being at residential studios for a long period of time, they start off all great friends and eventually it starts to get a bit edgy. Bands are either a tight-knit unit or they fall apart. A bit like families, isn't it?
Because I don't play any instruments, you know what I mean? A lot of all the rest of the band played instruments. I'd sort of do my singing and I'd be sort of bored, you know what I mean? So then I'd be sort of just going twiddling my thumbs and I'd think, oh, I'm fucking going to a boozer. So I'd be in the pub most of the time with whoever. So then I'd bring a few people back and I think that's when it all went a bit tits up with me, I know, because I don't know where he'd gone somewhere, but like loads of people come back and started looking at his guitars and shit, and you're not allowed to look at his guitars.
And it all went a bit.
Yeah, I had a little argument, and then that was it. I think we had a little bit of a. Oh, and then we smashed the gaff up.
It was a proper fight. It was a proper brawl.
It was cricket bats and air rifles.
Dustbins.
No, Matt used a cricket bat to hit me or just wave it at my head. I don't remember much, but
we had air rifles. Yeah, and we locked them up. They got locked up because they might have got used.
It was just a lot of just running around and fucking throwing shit at people. And I just remember him getting in the car driving off, and I was stood there like a fucking wild bastard, just going, "God, you fucking shitbag!"
Didn't you throw a dustbin at the car or something?
Yeah.
I think it was flying up the drive.
Should have. Yeah, it's just little things. But them little things are just little, you know what I mean? It's the crack in it.
Was that one of the biggest fights you've ever had? No.
Probably, yeah. It was one of them, but
it's proper one. As fights went, it was a good one.
It was carnage. You know, some things got broken. I mean, here I didn't really know what to make of all that because it was the first time I'd kind of seen something like that. I wasn't used to it, but everybody here seemed to take it in their stride, as you know. I think they'd seen it all before, so nothing was going to shock them. So yeah, they just cleaned it up the next day, and it was like nothing had happened. Yeah, I think Noel went home.
He's always been a bit like that, you know what I mean? What are you doing bringing people back when we're working? And I get it, you know what I mean? But my argument would be, what are you doing fucking taking 900 fucking takes to fucking do one guitar riff when you should be in the fucking pub with me? You know what I mean? Entertaining me!
Are you close at that stage?
Yeah, super close. We're all close. Yeah. We weren't like Bros or anything. We weren't fucking like fucking Jedward, you know what I mean? Jedward. You know what I mean? We weren't like, we'd just go all right and he'd go all right and then that'd be it, you know what I mean? Yeah, that was the story of the band's life, man, really. Sort of be good one minute and then it'd be chaotic the next. Until the poor lad had enough one night in Paris. And then he took his ball home.
And that was when you split?
That was when we split, yeah.
But is the same stuff that was between you that caused the argument the same stuff that made it all so good?
Yeah. We were banging into it 24/7. We were also, which is our downfall, we were also into fucking the other side of it as well. The party side of it, you know what I mean? Like, all these bands that sit there and go, oh, yeah, we're fucking great. Yeah, you're great. You were shit at getting off your box, though, weren't you? So you lot can go, you know what I mean? We were good at being in the studio, and we were also good at being in the pub, you know what I mean? And I'm proud of that as much as I am of the great vocals and the fucking takes in the studio, you know what I mean? We were fucking into the whole thing, man.
How many special people change? How many lives are living strange? Where were you while we were getting high?
We were walking and talking in a certain manner and singing or whatever and playing in a certain manner that it had to go off, you know what I mean? The music went with what we were saying. Had swag, you know what I mean? I felt we enjoyed the life, you know what I mean?
Can you hear that in the record?
But I think so, yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
There's a happy vibe on that album, man, I think.
It's all, you know what, it's all a bit of a blur, really. We'd been to one of the pubs in the town. It was the furthest one from Mono Valley.
There'd been a bit of an argument over one of the guys who was doing some extra mixing on the record. I don't know. We had a bit of a barney with Rob about it, but we said, "Come on, let's get out of here. Let's go." And you know, it was fine. You know, Rob had half a lager, and he was playing the bandit all night, which is what he liked to do.
So me and Mark went back. Rob was driving behind us. From Monmouth town, it's quite like windy roads, lots of hedges and lots of corners and stuff like that, lots of fields. And it was speeding up, and it was kind of just, you know, being crazy, like something in a film. And then all of a sudden just disappeared. Well, we all thought they'd taken a detour to go and get some supplies or something, you know, and didn't really think much about it at all.
Maybe about 45 minutes went by, then the police came round and said, you should get yourself to Abergavenny Hospital. And that's when I thought, oh, what's he done? What's he done now?
And me and Mark went to the hospital and I heard it on the radio. It was just going through my head, the lyrics, every lyric that was in it. It was just like, you know, want another sister and a brother, changing the way that, you know, it just kind of felt like it was just, I just knew that, I knew what I was going to face when we got there.
We knew the charlatans. We knew them pretty well. And I do remember just one night, and I was here, happened to be staying here, and you can hear the main road, and I just heard this car driving incredibly fast down the road. And then you heard the sort of the of them going over cat's eyes. And you thought, God, he is going at some pace. You know, he's driving fast, and there's a really nasty, deceptive bend at the end of our meadow. And then you heard the crash. And the car he'd gone, I guess, had gone too fast around the corner and had gone out of control, turned the car over. You know, and then when we found out that it was Rob, you know, it was just awful.
You know, Rob was... He was the first person who ever picked me up, you know, when I went to see the Charlatans. He was the first person who put me up, and I stayed at his house, and we listened to people's records and talked about how we were going to change the world. And we talked about all that all the way through, the times of making records. And we're telling stories. You know, he's on a lot of the recordings. We tried to keep as much of his stuff intact as we could. And yeah, he's always going to be a part of that record. He's always going to be a part of Rockfield. I mean, he died there, you know, and he's always going to be a part of the Rockfield story. And I think some of his ashes are scattered there as well. But, you know, he's not gone, he's just in a different dimension, yeah.
1, 2, 1, 2. That's good for me.
He's playing tonight. We from those times we run like little samples and loops, and Rob's been on tour with us since he died. It's quite comforting, you know, when you're playing, and yeah, you know, every night that we play, you know, they're still playing.
The isolation and the place allowed us to create our own world, and we captured, you know, the rooms allowed us to capture that, and I'm forever grateful about that. I love it. There's so many amazing memories there. It's such a positive place.
As I remember, it was 1999. We had just been students, and then after that we were cleaners a bit. We had never recorded out of London before. We'd never really recorded before, to be honest. We'd done one session a few months before in London, which hadn't gone so well. So we were going there as it was kind of a make or break session.
I think we knew absolutely nothing about Rockfield before we went there. And I mean, I remember so vividly when we turned up and we drove down, it was like a little unmade road, and there was cows. And I sort of wondered what on earth we were doing there.
So it was our first real dip into a proper recording studio, and we'd heard that the Stone Roses had spent about 2.5 years there or something like that, or maybe more.
By the time we got to Rockfield, it was like, this is your chance. You know, we'd been given kind of 6 months to get used to being signed and stuff. And then our label were like, look, you've got to kind of make it happen now. So it was very much like some sort of musical Hogwarts. You know, we were sent away to figure it out. We were recording a song called Shiver, and we went outside to have like a breather, and it was just so beautiful outside. All 4 of us were outside, and Ken, and he was like, look up there, lads. Look at the stars. He literally said, look at the stars, which is the first line of that song. And it was really mind-blowing. We'd been in London for like 5 years, so we hadn't really seen anything beyond smog for a while. So that line was in my head, and then I was thinking about how Neil Young sings the word stars like stars, stars, like he does a sort of bend in it. So then I went back in to try and do this acoustic. So So normal tuning, that isn't it. Right? It's had this song called Shiver, which was like this. Which was like our attempt at a Jeff Buckley song. And we were recording that. Anyway, I went back in to sit behind the control desk, mixing desk, waiting, and something was wrong with the machine. So I was waiting, and I saw. Then that chord, I started doing that, and I started thinking about Neil Young, and I was like, stars. I was just messing around. This is really this very humble beginnings. For you. Then I tried like that's a normal chord shape, but it sounds different in this tuning. I don't even know what that chord is. I was just doing that. Then I got the title from the Yellow Pages, which was about 45-degree angle over there. They were all, I was looking for a word which was like, yellow. So then I thought, I like this. So then I went through, everyone else was watching football, I think. And I went and I said, guys, what do you think about this? And they were like, yes, that's okay. They weren't particularly interested. And I went into the bathroom in the living room area. And then the chorus came out. Your skin, your skin. And I showed them that, and then they're like, yeah, we like that. I gave us our lives for the last 16 years.
1, 2, 3, go.
What's it about? I don't know. Just someone awesome.
Was it about someone specific?
No, most of our songs are about someone or something awesome. Whether that's a person or a girl or a child or an entity or a figurative way of speaking about the earth. We're always banging on about love and amazingness. And I think we always will.
Oh, what a thing to have done. And it was all yellow.
I think that session at Rockfield helped us kind of solidify who we were and what we were trying to do as a band. The sound of our first album really came from Rockfield Studios and that sort of back to basics mentality that was imposed upon us there.
Well, good songs will always be written all over the place, but I think what is changing is that studios are going out of business all over the world because of the ease of which you can now record on computers and whatnot. And also there's not that many people willing to put a band of 4 kind of just post-teenagers in an expensive studio situation and let them stay there for a month and see what happens. You know, not that many record companies are taking risks like that.
Rockfield will always be a part of me because we started Black Sabbath there. I started my solo career there. I can go and live in Beverly Hills, but for some reason, I end up back in Rockfield.
It all helped to create what we did.
It's just magic.
I love being in residential studios. I fucking loved it. You're a proper band, aren't you, when you're in there? Who knows, man? I mean, music's done different now. I do a lot of my stuff fucking through emails, man. You know, they fucking email you the drums and that these days and go out and email you the hi-hat. In 10 years' time, you've got half a tune done. It's just, where's the vibe of that? You know what I mean?
what I'm still struggling on, trying to make records and write songs.
Where do you do it now?
Up in my loft, yeah. Well, I can do anything up there that we did in Rockfield.
Nowadays, with equipment, you know, for recording, all you need is a laptop, really. When you're recording on a computer, you know, your song can be performed perfectly. It might take you a good few weeks tweaking it and fiddling around and stuff, but it does have the potential for perfection. But perfection is not always what you want. You want something that has emotion and feeling. You have to capture some magic and some mystery. You know, magic is mystery as well, you know. There's often, you know, something, maybe the Stone Roses record, there's a lot of mystery about it, which is why people still listen to it.
Since our time at Rockfield, we built our own place kind of to try and give ourselves that same sort of freedom.
It's not as good as Rockfield, no way, but I like to make records and I'm really passionate about making records. Charles and Kingsley were really passionate about making recording studios and making them the best studios in the world, and they have achieved that.
We were very, very lucky, but we turned the recording world upside down.
Charming little woman, oh, who can set a man to rights? Charming little woman, oh, who can hoax and coax you too? Who can beat you black and blue? Who can love you better too? Charming little woman, oh.
I was so excited about being here because of mainly Queen, to be honest.
Have you encountered Kingsley and Anne yet?
I have, I've met them. We met Kingsley yesterday morning and he was out riding around on his tractor and he was very sort of grumpy about people coming to sit on the Wonderwall, and then he rode past in his tractor and got a massive puncture and like that. And yeah, he's been fabulously grumpy the whole time we've been here, actually. Grumpy and also welcoming and full of stories.
We work 7 days a week, as we always have done. We're a leisure-based company today. We do a lot of holiday letters. We do a lot of master classes, and we're recording. We're the milking stool. With a milking stool, it's always on 3 legs. If you stand on 1 leg, you fall over. 2 legs, no good. 4 legs, you will rock. But 3 legs, you're steady, because you can't rock. The holiday lets cannot believe their good luck when they come here, because I give them a tour. They're so amazed at where they are that they can't believe it.
No fighting. No fighting. Don't have a go at me.
My mum always says the animals are her sanity, you know, because there is something wonderful about beginning and ending your day with animals. Whether that be, you know, feeding the cows first thing in the morning, letting the chickens out first thing in the morning, walking the dogs, mucking out the stables, and then at the end of the day, get the horses settled for the night in the stables. Beginning and ending a day with animals, for me anyway. And I think it's the same for my parents, definitely, and my sister. I just think that, you know, nature is a leveller, it's grounding, it centres you. And I think that's really important somewhere here.
It's about being a part of something way bigger than you. You're a part of something else rather than just it. Very important for rock stars.
Well, you've got to do something with your life. Never give in. Keep going. The best is yet to come.